Morning. Come in. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Coming in. How are you tonight? How are you tonight? Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Tonight, it is time for Transforming Trauma with Dr. Triffy. How are you doing? So, I'm a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia. I practice also as a licensed counselor, a licensed professional counselor, and as an advanced clinical hypnotherapist. Tonight, as I do on Thursdays, I show up to teach skills, to teach tips for how to think better so we can feel better and do better. I have an interesting and hopefully meaningful topic for you tonight. I want you to stick around till the end. Yeah, stick around till the end because this is important. It is potentially life saving. It's potentially life saving. I like to tell people that I'm originally from Dominica, which is a tiny island in the Caribbean between Guadeloupe and Martinique. And no, we are not to be confused with the Dominican Republic. They are further north. We are in the middle of that little archipelago. We speak English and the French Creole, and they speak Spanish. But we love them just the same. Yeah. So tonight, I want to share 9 quick ways for you to tell if you're lazy or really if you're depressed. Are you or somebody you know depressed or just lazy? I thought long and hard about using the word lazy because I've heard it so many times. I've heard it so many times. So I'm going to start with my story, right? I'm going to start with my story. A very smart little girl, very quiet, but let my family tell it, y'all. I was lazy. I did not want to do chores. All I wanted to do was read books in my little room. So I remember one time my mom wanted me to do the dishes. Now, in the Caribbean, well, at least in our house in Dominica, our kitchen sink was actually an outside kitchen sink. So we had the shower standing outside, nice structure shower. And then on the front end, we had this huge sink. And there were 10 of us living at home, I think, at that time. So it was a lot of dishes, cups, plates, forks, spoons. I must have been a preteen. I don't think I was in high school yet. Look, it was my turn to wash the dishes, and I confess, I pulled a lazy trick. I pulled a lazy trick on my mom that to this day, I feel some guilt about it. I told my mom, Ma, my stomach hurts. I think something's wrong. My stomach hurts. And I played the part so well. My mom sent one of my siblings to the little shop, the little village shop, to buy a packet of cricks, your cricks, which are crackers, famous. Every Caribbean person knows cricks. Cricks and the red sausage, the red, nice sausage. I felt so bad, but I pulled lazy tricks on the lady, talking about my stomach was hurting. I've heard over time, as I work with many clients, people suggest that relatives say to them, you're exaggerating the way you're feeling. You're just lazy and you're overdoing it. Whatever it is you're describing, you're overdoing it. You're pretending to be depressed. Come on, snap out of it. Get a move on. you're doing too much, you're being extra. Get up, snap out of it. So tonight I want to share 9 quick ways that you can tell if what you're experiencing in your body is depression, or are you just not doing enough? Are you really just, doing the bare minimum? Or if somebody you know and love, like your child, if what they're describing to you fits into the category of depression versus this is just a kid who was pulling some lazy tricks on you. Why is this topic important tonight? I chose to do this topic tonight because Monday on October 10th was World Mental Health Day. And of course, as a clinician, my intention is to draw attention, especially to communities and in communities where historically we haven't used therapeutic services, mental health support services as much perhaps as some other cultural groups. Number two, we're just kind of sliding out of the pandemic, and depression rates, according to some serious magazines like The Lancet and Medical News Today, and Brown University too, I think. Once the pandemic hit, depression rates tripled, increased 3 times. Okay? Tripled. So we say we're out of the pandemic, but in a sense, we're dealing with the aftermath and the fallout of the pandemic. People are grieving lost loved ones, grieving changes in life, grieving losses of jobs. The list goes on and on and on. And we're being called to get back into work as if, I think in some ways, as if nothing ever happened. So tonight, I hope by the time we're done, you can tell for yourself and for somebody else if what you're experiencing fits the category of depression, or if maybe you do have to kind of speed yourself up and just do a few more things that maybe you just don't want to do. Hmm? So let's go. 9 quick ways. What every mental health professional does is we use something called the DSM. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Health Disorders. It's kind of like a Bible with every last diagnosable condition. And it gives you criteria, tells you what you have to look for. It tells you how long you have to be experiencing symptoms. It tells you additionally what you might rule out, like what, hey, if this is happening, then that, you can't give that label if XYZ is also happening. So I want you to listen well to the 9 quick ways, the 9 things you need to look out for to know if you are experiencing depression or if you have in the past, because depression can be a sort of cyclical experience where you ride the wave of depression, you crash but you pull yourself back up, and you're coasting again, but then something happens perhaps, or for some people nothing has to happen, and you kind of fall back into what might feel like a valley again. Out of these 9 ways, you need to have at least 5, okay? At least 5. 5 or more of these symptoms during the same 2-week period. That is different from how you used to function in the past, okay? You have to have depressed mood and or a loss of interest or loss of pleasure. Those must be present for you to call it a depressive episode. And you have to be able to say that it's what you're feeling is not related to any medical condition. Right? Okay, so let's start. Number one, I just said one. One quick way is if you have depressed mood. Okay, let's talk about that. So, most of the day, or nearly every day, you might feel, and this is a subjective experience, meaning it's not what people say or they see, it's just how you feel in your body, how you feel inside yourself. You might feel empty, or you might feel sad, or you might feel hopeless. Others others might also see it and tell you, "Hey, I notice you look sad," because they might have seen you cry, or they might have seen you look sadder than you used to look if they know you well. Okay? In kids and adolescents, it might look like irritability. They're just kind of cranky, you know. We might say they're moody, like like that. So that's one way. Number one. Now remember, you have to have either depressed mood and or number two, which is a loss of interest in things you used to enjoy. What you used to like to do, you're not interested in it anymore. Or even if you're doing it now, you've lost the sense of pleasure in it. You've lost the sense of enjoying taking trips or going to the movies. You're just there. It's just like there's a sharp drop in your interest or in your pleasure in all or mostly all of your activities that you used to find enjoyable most of the day and nearly every day. Again, that might be based on how you feel on the inside or what somebody who knows you very well observes in your day to day. Here's number three. Number three is weight loss or weight gain. Weight loss or weight gain. Now, how can that happen? Weight loss, because many of us, when we feel this kind of feeling, we lose our appetite. Some of us, though, we do the opposite, which is we gain appetite. So because a lot of us we eat to soothe our painful feelings. So everybody's different. The way it might show up in you is you've lost your appetite, and some people will say, "Well, I'm on the stress diet. I just don't feel good. I just don't feel like eating." You have significant weight loss without intending to lose weight, without dieting, or you gain body weight, at least more than 5% of your pre existing body weight in a month. So just sharp weight loss or sharp weight gain. Okay? In kids, it might be a failure to gain weight as expected. Okay, so the kid might be eating, or we take them to the doctor, and the doctor's developmental exam, it looks like they're not gaining weight. Okay, so that's way number three. That's how you can distinguish. Hey, we're adding it up. You need to be looking for those things to be able to say, well, okay, I'm not just being lazy. This is really something potentially serious. Because remember, depression is life threatening. When we come down to number nine, you'll see, and we'll talk more about that. Number four is insomnia, or its opposite, which is hypersomnia, nearly every day. Insomnia is I can't go to sleep. I toss and I turn. I finally might fall asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, or I go to sleep, but I can't stay asleep the entire night. I'm up, I'm tossing and I'm turning. I'm not getting good rest. Or hypersomnia. The person or you might just be sleeping, oversleeping all day, every day, right? Out of place. Where normally you would be up, you can't keep your head up. Hypersomnia. And that has to be happening almost every day. Number five is called psychomotor agitation or retardation. Now, that's when you're moving around a lot. You're fidgety, you can't sit still. Mm. Somebody might say, why are you so hyper? Mm. We use that word kind of loosely. Why are you just moving around so much? You can't sit still. You can't rest. Or the opposite, where it feels like you're like this. You do the opposite. You can barely move. You're sitting on the couch for hours. You're lying on the bed for hours. Sometimes some of us, we lose ourselves, you know. Number 6. Okay. Now, for that psychomotor agitation and retardation, that has to be observable almost every day, okay? And by other people too, not just based on your interpretation. So somebody's going to notice and they'll say something to you. So it's based on that. Are you noticing that in your child? For the past 2 weeks, as opposed to how they used to be, they can't sit still, or they're just laid out in the bed, on the couch, hang dog. Yeah. Number 6 is fatigue. Fatigue is such a big one. It's a loss of energy nearly every day. Fatigue, feeling tired even after you've just woken up, feeling tired when normally you would be feeling energized and energetic and ready to go. You're at work, but it feels like you can't do it the entire day. The 7th way, this comes to now internal stuff and mental stuff and our thought life, yeah, and our emotional life. Feeling worthless. This is very important. Feeling as if you have no value. What's the point? What's the point of me being here? What good am I? What is my worth? Or excessive guilt, or guilt that doesn't make sense, or guilt that doesn't fit. So feeling guilty, because you told somebody, I don't like this, or feeling guilty in a situation where it doesn't, where everybody else would say, why are you feeling guilty? There's no need to be feeling guilty for this. You didn't do anything wrong. But in that state, many people in a depressed state will express feeling guilty. Sometimes that guilt might actually be delusional, completely false, completely bizarre, completely just not relevant. It's not just about something you did wrong that you ought to have real remorse or guilt for. Okay? Number 8. Number 8 is decreased concentration. It's hard to focus. You go to work, you might be able to put in 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, your brain feels like it's stopped. What are we doing again? What do I need to do again? You're asking your family to text you reminders. You're having to write everything down because you can't hold it the way you used to. Now remember, you're looking for a span of time of at least 2 weeks. And you have to be experiencing this nearly every day. It might also be indecisiveness. You're taking 20 minutes you're at the store, you're trying to figure out, hey, I want a piece of candy, but which should I buy? Which should I get? I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. It may be subjective. Again, it might be you are just feeling that yourself, or somebody might notice. People who know you well will notice. And number 9 is the biggie. This is the one where I say depression is life threatening, because it is life threatening. Because depression is life threatening. Thoughts of suicide. If you ever have the thought that I ought not to be here anymore, this is serious. Okay? Recurrent thoughts of death, ongoing, they keep coming back. It wasn't just a one off, it keeps coming back. And it's not just the fear of dying, but wanting to die, thinking about how to die, thinking about allowing other people to hurt you. Some people will hurt themselves, scratch themselves, mark themselves, cut themselves, burn themselves. Sometimes people have a plan for how to do it. You or the person you might be thinking about right now might have an actual plan if you ask them, hey, have you ever thought of hurting yourself or killing yourself? They might have a very specific plan. And sometimes they might not. Okay? So, did I mention anything in this list of 9 quick ways you can decide, am I being lazy or depressed? Did any of that fit you? Okay? What you also want to be looking for is to think about, well, hey, out of these 9 quick ways to spot, hey, am I having a depressive episode, or did I have one in the past and I wasn't really sure? If those symptoms caused you distress, significant distress, meaning, pain, discomfort, frustration to such a level, right, that it interfered with your ability to work, like I was just saying, your concentration is so challenged that you can only work for 30 minutes before it feels like your brain, you're walking through a world of mush. Your brain hits a wall and you can't work. What does that mean? That means you cannot be functional in your job. Okay, so if it impacts your social life where you don't want to see your friends anymore because you're so lethargic that you're just sleeping or lying around in the bed, or you're feeling so fatigued you don't even want to take a shower. Okay, that means it's impacting your social life and other important areas of your functioning. Okay, again, if that experience, if you cannot tie it in to any other body condition or a medical condition, or say a substance you took, okay, some drugs, you drank too much and you're having you've been drinking a lot and you've gone on for a while where you're just feeling whatever the next day. If you don't have another thing to pin it on, or if that episode cannot be better explained by another diagnosis, and we have some long name diagnoses that you don't have to worry about as I tell you this, because if any of these symptoms sound like you, remember, if at least one, and number two, the loss of pleasure and that depressed mood, yo, if you start seeing that, I am already asking you to talk to a professional. I'm already asking you to talk to a professional to start exploring what that might be about. Because a professional will do a nice assessment, spend a nice hour, maybe more, with you talking to help you figure out, are you having a depressive episode? Has this happened in the past? Is this an experience that keeps happening over and over and over again for you, over different cycles? And if maybe it's not something else, okay, that is also diagnosable. And that person, that professional, can give you a nice plan for how to move forward, how to get better, how to get better. So, when it comes to the laziness bit, I think sometimes we can be a little lazy. You can be a procrastinator. I think that's the thing. I think some of us are not doing as much as we know we could be doing. But after I've listed all of these 9 ways, I think it's very, very easy to separate. I just don't feel like doing extra work, or I don't feel like doing this right now. Okay? Versus I am suffering, and I'm suffering to the point where it's impacting my work, it's impacting my relationships, it's impacting my joy, my pleasure in life. Okay, so what do? You heard me already mention talk to a therapist, call a professional. Before you do that on your own, I encourage you to feel your feelings, feel whatever it is you're feeling, and allow it to pass through you. Depression and sadness, sadness, a depressed mood can feel like a wave. It just crashes into you. Feel it, let it crash into you, feel it. And there's some techniques you can use to help you move through it, or to build what is called emotional resilience, where okay, this is not going to take me out. I know it hurts so bad right now, but as it's hurting so bad right now, what I can do is I can go take a walk. I can call somebody to talk to, a friend that I know is supportive. I could practice what's called mindfulness. Mindfulness is focusing on the present moment, paying attention to the feeling, describing the feeling, mm, observing it, just noticing it without criticizing yourself for it, just experiencing it. So that's what mindfulness feels like when you actually do it. I think yoga is very powerful as a way to manage moods, also because yoga is physical. It invites us to engage our breath. Yeah. And I just think it helps to. There are also parts of the body. So yoga is one of those practices that stimulates what's called a vagus nerve. And in some trauma work, there's a piece of work called polyvagal theory, right? Which says that if you stimulate your vagus nerve, it'll help to soothe you and help you regulate your emotions. So, yoga or any other practice that can do that for you is a powerful way to help you manage. So, you might do some slow stretches if you don't have the energy, do some stretching. Or walk around the lake, like I said. Or if you have enough energy, take a little jog. I think deep breathing, slowing your breathing down, uh, breathing as if you were something like that, helps me move through painful feelings. If it's coming like a wave, breathe as if you are uh, breathing in through a straw and breathing out through a straw. I think writing gratitude lists is also helpful because doing something like that takes you away from focusing on the immediate emotion, and you do something that by the time you're done, you might feel a little better because you're focusing on positive things. And gratitude is one of those practices that helps to stimulate a little bit of feel good and accomplishment. A little bit of dopamine release helps. Okay. But I think the biggest piece of advice as you start, working through these feelings is know that everything passes. So even that experience of the pain you're feeling, it must give way to a different emotion. So patience with yourself as you feel it. As you feel it, it's uncomfortable feeling painful feelings like guilt and remorse and fear and anxiety and sadness. It's not comfortable, but it's like building a muscle in a way. It builds emotional resilience. Number two, I would say try your best. It's not easy because energy is low, to avoid procrastination, because that's a way that's a procrastination can lead us to other ways we distract ourselves, like the phone, where we might stay in the phone for 2 hours, 3 hours, and the work that we really have to do for our supervisor stays undone. Yeah, or you might forget to pick up your kids from school. A lot of things can happen when we procrastinate and avoid. The other problem with avoiding is it's still going to come up. You avoid the feelings, but at some point, it's going to show up. So I think it's very positive to practice feeling it and allowing it to move without judging yourself or criticizing yourself. Number three, I'm going to say a Creole saying here, which is reminiscent and similar to behavioral activation. In Dominica, we use the phrase, my mom definitely did, where she'd say, Mawe wen eve ba bonda ou twa tap. Literally, when you translate that in English, it's tie your waist, gird your loins, essentially, and give your butt three slaps, where you put in your little energy in yourself. Okay? Where you're doing things not because you want to, because very often you're not going to want to, but you're doing things because you must and you need to. So, for example, things that you want to focus on doing are what are called activities of daily living, like taking a shower, keeping your routine in the morning. You wake up, what you normally do when you're feeling good, go ahead and do it, even if you don't feel like doing it. So go ahead, brush your teeth, wash your face, whatever you got to do. Take a nice little shower, take a nice, have a nice little cup of tea. Whatever little routine you normally follow, you want to try to follow that. You want to try to follow that, okay? And then I suggest small steps, small steps, small steps, because depression is such an energy drain. The fatigue can be overwhelming, the lethargy, the malaise. I don't want to do anything. I don't feel it in my body. It can be very overwhelming. So start small and build up, because as you're building up, you'll get to a point where you get a little bit of momentum. So even the small task of getting up and going to brush your teeth, you know, taking the shower, doing your makeup, if you're somebody who likes makeup, or taking a little walk, having your little coffee, if that's your little routine in the morning, just slowly building up, as opposed to thinking, man, I've got to get to work. I've got to get in the car and get to work. If you start just doing one task, next task, little bit, little bit, little bit, moving towards the bigger goal of getting myself to work, that's easier than if you start thinking, oh my God, I have to get to work. It's such a big thought sometimes if you're in that space. So set your bar a little lower so that you can follow through, as opposed to trying to, you know, do the big task first. So, my final thoughts on laziness and depression, whether or not it's laziness or depression, I'm speaking. This is a little note, especially for my Caribbean parents, my Dominican parents, because listen, I heard that word lazy a lot. Hmm? I was over there killing the courses in my school, straight A's, and I was still getting worn out for being lazy. And I'd argue with them and say, I'm not lazy. Look at the amount of work I'm doing. I just don't like that kind of work right there. So whether it's laziness or depression that your child is experiencing, or a bit of both, change really has to come from the inside out. Doing it in a different way, that comes from the inside out. I think as parents, if you're the parent of a child that you're like, what's really going on here? Have a conversation with your child. Have a conversation with your child and start finding out. Ask some of those nine. Ask questions about the 9 points I just gave. And I'm going to review it. I'm going to review them for you before we leave so you can see, hey, hmm, is this my child? Is this me? Okay. I suggest you focus on staying in touch with your feelings. If it's your child, acknowledging your child's feelings, or your spouse, or your sibling, whomever it is. Just stay connected to the emotions that you're experiencing or the other person is experiencing, and talk about that. Okay? See where you or they, or where you can help your person that you love avoid or eliminate distractions so that they can complete the tasks, small task at a time, that they need to get whatever it is they need to be doing done. Okay? So I'm going to review those 9 ways, those 9 things. I need you to look for these 9 things. If it's you having that experience, or it seems to you that somebody you love, somebody around you is having those experiences, that's what I want you to look out for, so you know, hey, we need to talk to a therapist. We need to call somebody. We definitely need to start doing some things in a different way. Okay, so number one, if within the past 2 weeks you have experienced depressed mood where you're sad most of the day and nearly every day, or somebody else has noticed that you look very sad, okay, you might be tearful. That's number one. Number two, if you've lost interest or pleasure in activities you used to enjoy. Three, weight gain or weight loss. Weight gain because some of us we eat to soothe ourselves. Weight loss because some of us we just lose our appetite. Number four, sleeping too much or not being able to sleep the entire night, or sleeping for some and but restless and can't sleep the entire night. Five, psychomotor agitation or retardation, where you're just, they can't sit still, you can't sit still, you got to be moving around, doing things. You're a bit what you might call in common language when you're talking to people and in your, in your family, like hyper, you're being a little hyper here, slow down. Or you're just not, they're just not moving much, you know? They're laid out on the bed, on the couch, don't seem like they have much energy to do much. Fatigue is the next one. Fatigue is number six. Just feeling exhausted for no real reason. Didn't run a marathon, didn't run around the lake, but feeling fatigued. And that kind of deep, weary feeling on the inside. Feeling worthless or feeling guilty. That that feeling worthless, when I see it, I worry as a clinician. For me, I take feeling worthless and that guilty feeling as, hey, we really need to pay attention here. Decreased concentration. It's hard to focus, it's hard to maintain your focus. And then, number nine, thoughts of death or suicide is an automatic. If you're talking to your family member, if you are yourself feeling that it is time to speak to a professional. And please don't try to minimize it. Don't try to, talk your person out of it, because you can't talk them out of it. Okay? You can't talk them out of it. You can't talk a person out of what they're feeling. What you do is you go to the professional, because if your tire on your car starts losing air, you realize, okay, something might be going on here, right? You might do a little patch. If you can, that's where you start talking to your family member. Okay, that's where you, if you're the person having the experience, you might practice the mindfulness, or you might journal, or you might write your gratitude list, or you might take a few, take a little walk around, whatever, on the beach, whatever. So you might see if you feel better. But if that is not enough, you definitely always want to take your person to a professional if they mention, I have thoughts of death, I'm hurting myself, your child is cutting themselves. Okay? So, I am not doing an overly long session tonight, but I know, look, if you live long enough, you're going to have something in life happen where you experience life in that way. And all of us need to know what to do when that happens. Okay? All of us need to know what to do when that happens. And I hope you, especially my people in Dominica, I'm going to mention again a couple therapists that I know for sure who are in Dominica. If you're on the ground in Dominica, Dr. Gina Leta, there is also a Dr. Benjamin, and then there's another therapist called Miss Massicott, okay, that I'm aware of in Dominica, if you are in Dominica. If you're in Atlanta, there's so many ways to find a therapist. Call your insurance company and ask them for a list of people in your zip code who take your insurance. Many therapists don't accept insurance. Just call around. There is Psychology Today. You can go to psychologytoday.com and just look at the profiles of the therapists on there, and you decide, this person feels like we might be a good match. Call a few and talk to them for a little bit and go in. Spend your money on yourself. Spend your money well on yourself, because success, I was telling folks on my Facebook Live this morning, starts in your mind. Success starts up here. So you've got to take care of your mental health, or else it's hard to enjoy your day to day life. So the same amount of energy you put towards cleaning your teeth or getting your annual physical exam, I want to encourage you all to do the same for your mental health, even if you don't think anything is wrong. Just go kind of check, because a lot of us, we carry a lot of traumatic histories that we haven't really talked about. We haven't really dealt with it. And those are some of the biggest, I think trauma is one of the biggest, what do you call it, catalysts, right? Or triggers for depressive episodes. And so you want to do that. You are worthy of that. You're worthy of that. Okay? So thank you all for showing up tonight with me. I hope you got some helpful information. I really want the parents who are listening to pay attention to their kids. Our kids are growing up in a different generation, and they have thoughts that many of us would never have considered. Okay? So talk to your kids tonight. If you notice, even if it's one of those symptoms I mentioned, just have a little conversation with them. Elvon, Elvon, Elvon said, "Oh God, thank God for you, thank God for your good work." You're very welcome, Elvon. You're very welcome. Right now, we can use those therapists that we do have in Dominica, and I'm really encouraging you strongly, strongly, strongly. Don't put things off, because therapy makes a huge difference. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. Therapists are well trained to take care of you, to help you feel better. Okay? So, as a reminder, stay in your fight, whatever your fight is, and hold tight. Okay? I will see you all another time. Have a good Thursday evening. Bye.